29th of July 2025. You're welcome back. Well, from what I hear now on this deal between the European Union and the United States, the drinks industry is subject to 15%. I know that a representative of the Scottish whisky industry spoke with Trump when he was over. I think he's gone back now and explained to him some of the unique things about whiskey. And Trump said he never drank it, and he never drank. He never drank it much, but he never drank it at all. And they made the point that Scotch whisky can only be made in Scotland, which is true. But I understand it's still 15%. Now, that'll be 15% on the basic price, on the wholesale price. But you see, some Scotch whiskies are expensive. You could pay €100 for some of the good Scotch whiskies. So it won't be the alcohol price. There'll be no duty on it. It'll go into America with no excise duty or no VAT or no taxes on it, but it will be taxed on its product. So, for example, a bottle of cheap whiskey, Dundalgan whiskey in Ireland, for an example, or a bottle of cheap Scotch whiskey, would the price of that might be 25 euros, we'll say, but the wholesale price might be 18 euros, we'll say. So it might be 18 euros for the wholesale price. If you took some of the expensive Irish or Scotch whiskies, the wholesale price could be €100. And then you have your markup on top of that. Do you understand? Or a bottle of maybe 15-year-old Redbreast could easily be €100 here in Ireland. That's the wholesale price. So they'll be getting caught quite a bit. There'll be 15% on that. Now, having said that, anyone that can afford to pay that level, I mean, as opposed to the slightly better ones, would be caught for the 15%. You could say they'll have it anyway. Anyway, that's what I'm hearing. It's a wee bit uncertain. You can't hold me down to it, but that's what it's on the news tonight, that they've agreed to do a 15% on the spirits, in other words, brandy and all of that. And there'll be nothing come in free. That'll mean the bourbons and that will be cheaper here. Anyway, I don't take a lot of it. The wee bit I do, not that much, but it'll put you off now. 15% is a lot. I often bypass the bottle over 15% because it just wouldn't be worth it. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the Powers, ordinary Powers, is €25 in super value. And Powers Pot Still, that's the unaged version, not the 12-year-old, is 50. And all the difference is there's no grain in the Powers Pot Still. The Powers Pot Still is a far superior whiskey. But €50, an awful difference. An awful difference. It's still made of the same barley, but it's probably aged a bit more, and the casks may be a bit better than for the ordinary Powers. Anyway, enough on that. It would appear then that agriculture, we don't know. What butter and all that sort of stuff, we don't know. We don't actually know. And there's an awful lot of teasing out on this. Will the due diligence directive apply? That'll fairly sicken Trump if he hears that. And but the cars will be 15%. Now, somebody did comment underneath, and I'd say fair play, hands up. You know, there's cars more than made in other places other than Germany. That's true. There's Alfa Romeo used to be made in Italy, and so there's the Fiats, and there's the cars even made in Britain, and there's cars in France. Just Citroën and Renault are examples of French production. And there's cars made, the Volkswagen car, the Seat, is partly made in Spain. So I accept that. But the bulk of them are made in Germany. And someone commented there that the standard of German cars and the standard of European cars has gone way down. Actually, the American cars might be better. I can't understand why they're making crappy cars. And they are making them crappy cars. I know a person who fixes gearbox, and my God, he's finding grains of sand in the cogwheels in the gearboxes. They don't seem to take their customers into account, and right enough, they're building them only to last a while. And you see now with the electric cars, they're only last 7 years. They're going to build the other cars that they'll not last any longer. This is all a bit of conspiracy between all of these. Now, the other thing too is the Starmer government is now strongly going ahead to introduce into the UK the abolition of the inheritance tax relief. That means that somebody handing over a farm to their son or daughter or relative they have to pay the full duty, the same as if it was a shop in the town or if it was a garage or whatever it was. They have to pay the full thing. Very often what you see happening with garages to sons is they close it up altogether, dissolve the company, and the son just buys it over just as a premises. So there's ways around this, but there's no way around it with agricultural land. So there's open warfare, and Nigel Farage is on the warpath defending the farmers, and they're really, really giving it to Starmer. But I reckon Starmer has been wound up by somebody else. He's been wound up. He's a mad EU man. He's been wound up, and he'll not cave in too easy. I've already said he'll not last, but everything's going wrong for him. He is some clown. He is some clown. Now, there was a body over from America, and I think Canada as well, meeting Nigel Farage about the freedom of speech. And there's great concern in parts of the world that the mother of parliaments, that's the British Parliament, is now shutting down free speech. In other words, you cannot comment on government policy. And there's big concern over this, and it's going well. Now, the thing is, the polls are showing Reform UK doing well, doing all right. But unless some of the Labour MPs walks across the aisle and dumps Starmer or have a no confidence vote, which I think will happen, he'll hold on to the bitter end. Them type people do not give up. Do not give up easy. He'll hang on. And if he loses MPs from Labour, he might try and get the Greens or some of the other crowd to join him in a coalition. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility that there'll be an election again and he'd get a very poor show, but he'll join up with the Greens and the Liberal Democrats. They want this woke stuff to the death. To the death. I wouldn't be too hopeful there. Having said that, under the British system, if Farage got about 33% of the vote, he would have a majority anyway, and that'd be good. People say they don't like Farage. I don't care whether you do or not. He's all we have. He's the only game we have in town, and he is committed to beating the migration, and he's committed to rolling back this anti-farmer, anti-rural situation, and he's not a big fan of the windmills either. Now the Germans are definitely attacking the migrant problem. They're really getting dug in as they see the alternative for Deutschland, and that's why the ballot box would fix all these problems if the people would only get up off their arses and the 40% that won't vote came out and voted. But anyway, he's now sending the Afghans back home. He's lurried home a heap of them. So our campaigning has had an effect. Me shouting and roaring has had an effect. When you state the obvious, it can have an effect. Not enough, and I don't know what we're going to do about it, but not enough, but it's having an effect. They must feel in Ireland that the Fianna Fáil Fine Gael vote could go down a bit. But I condemn to hell and damn their soul the beggars gets in the independents who went up and fooled the people into thinking they were getting something different, and they joined the government with no conditions. Shame on yous. Bloody shame on yous. So that's my little bit there, and I think it's working. I think my attitude has been very productive. I think we've swung people around. It's so destructive. Now Trump gives them a great doing. Now there's an J. Owens there comments that Trump is only a Zionist, an old Jewish fella, and he's all the rest. You never get everything you want. The minute Trump was gone from Britain, Starmer recognised Palestine. Now remember, there was an election in Palestine and they had the choice of a moderate government and they choose Hamas. So the bulk of the Palestinians hate Israel. You can't really blame them, maybe, in a way. And Israel knows it, and they want to put Israel out completely. It's a terrible situation, but it is. That's the real situation. So the Irish here would be thinking of recognising Palestine as well. But Britain now has, apparently, I'm only after hearing that, it was on the news. If I'm wrong, sure, I'll tell you. But I have a person rang me there and said Starmer recognised Palestine the minute he got Trump out. So they were forced to do a deal. The EU was. There was a deal with Britain, and a very good deal with Britain. I'm surprised Trump didn't crucify the British. I suppose he has a bit of a sentimental thing about it with his mother and all that. But so that's the story. Someone else said that Obama is coming here he was awarded the Freedom of Dublin to make it official sometime in September. Is that right? We need to have a protest. Go home, hump off out of here. You're not welcome, Obama. That's what we need to do. That fella's not welcome here under any circumstances. Not welcome at all. None. A wrong one if ever there was one. And it'd be nice if he'd bring his birth certificate and give me authority to go over to America or Hawaii and check his birth record. Nobody's allowed to do that. Anyway, enough said on all that. So yeah, that's my update, folks, there on 10 minutes. Very, very historic times. But it's frustrating, it's frustrating, but it's unreal that the European Union has agreed to pay 250 billion a year for fuel after them telling us they were going to have no fuel at all. And nobody calls them to order. Huh? Comment underneath. We'll see you back. Thank you.